Hello everyone, we're back with React 1.7 asynchronous data conditional rendering advanced and impossible state. So we're moving forward with the project in a way for us to get our to-dos from an API from an external source and sending them onto our app. Now the asynchronous data, it is a way for, unlike use persistent state that the data stays here, the data will come from somewhere else. So this is how the videos help in that project. um so yeah, let's check our GitHub. Then we have all the instructions for this project. It is longer than usual. It does explain how a difference between a synchronous button to a asynchronous part that uses advanced listener will work. We are going to add a set timeout for 2 seconds so the website load. We'll see that in a minute, and explain what API is, and our pending, resolving, and rejecting new promises is a new segment of React that we're gonna take care of. And yeah, let's start working on. Let me see. For now, we are going to remove our custom hook. So on previous lessons, our custom hook was persistent state that we use here inside the app. Instruction says that we're gonna remove it, so we're not gonna need it, and then we're gonna copy use state and use effect. Also, I'm just gonna add this because I keep seeing it more and more in tutorials. They use the hooks on top. Let me bring my camera back. They use the use effect use states on top rather than here react dot use effect. So I don't know. I like it. It's more clean. So since we're gonna Control X and then Control B. I'm gonna delete this because we don't need it. And I'm gonna add a comment here. We'll see that in a minute. I'm gonna call this second use effect. Even though it's the first one, I'm gonna name it second. You'll see that for a minute. Then, so yeah, just doing that little change should not affect our website. Control S to save. And I have the React running here. We have our save to-do list container of memory. We have our to-dos that are working. Clean dishes. And so far it's working. Removing, adding, so far the program has not broke down, so that's good. We're moving on to what a asynchronous part of it. They shorten it by calling async. And it says below the to-do list, we're gonna define a use effect with an empty dependency list. So here, use effect. And then here is my empty dependency list. Now, actually, I'm gonna change this too, so it's more readable. So we have our second use effect, and I'm gonna name this one first use effect. All right, so inside the handle function, we're gonna define a new promise. This is a new term. We are gonna be looking promises for React. The way you will start is new, capital P promise. Also takes a function like syntax, so it's the arrow and then open, and then It says as parameters, we're gonna pass out resolve, which is what happens when the function is successful, and reject, which is what happens when it's not successful. We're gonna be focusing on the resolve one, not the reject for this lesson. So let's take care of our timeout. Let's see. And then we're gonna call a timeout inside this new promise. So every time there's a successful promise, we're gonna set timeout. And I believe it's also function syntax. I'll take a look at my notes in a minute. Yes. And it has 2 seconds, which is 2000 milliseconds. And yeah, here's the correct syntax. And inside the timeout, we're gonna call the parameter resolve. And his once when the promise is successful, and pass it an object. So we are good on that. We're just gonna, once this becomes successful, we're just gonna resolve our timeout. Oops. And we're gonna pass a data object. We're gonna pass the object data, and it will be a nested object. So we need a second object with a property of to-do list. To-do list, and the value of the initial default list state. So it took me a minute to realize, and with help from other classmates from Code the Dream, this is the initial list state. So this is our local storage. But we're gonna start with the JSON parse. Control X, we're gonna like that, and it goes right here. JSON parse, open, and then I'm gonna pass this. Control X. Control save. And let me check my notes, because I believe that should be the right syntax to make sure, even if we hit errors, we'll be sure to fix them. So far it looks good. Let's keep working. All right, and all right, make sure the application, and we're gonna update the default state of our to-dos. So this to just be an empty array. So use state is gonna empty array. This is also important part, that is an array. Later we're gonna figure out why the initial set that we have each state is something that needs to be returned. Okay, so if I control save and it's tested, low world. So we have our save to do state that has been saved, but if I refresh it, they disappear because nothing is holding that state of that data. And it says right here, so we're retrieving our list from local storage, but we are updating our to-do list, meaning every refresh it starts as an empty list. And we're gonna solve it by chaining a then method to our promise. So here's the promise. This is the team set timeout. If the promise is successful, then again, I encourage everyone to look at then. I believe syntax is like that. And pass out a function with a parameter of resolve. So we're going to pass resolve here. And inside the function, I'm going to use the state setter, which is set to do list. Set to do list. Remember, it's returning an array, so array form that returns all the objects that we have on our to-dos. So this, and then I believe, let me see, pass in a function, to-do list. I think here, unless I overlook, it should start with result dot data dot to-do list. Let's take a quick look at the notes, or let me run it before taking on that. Let me run it. And result. Okay, source. We have no errors. Let's see what the duck are safe. We hit the cat. Save. We have our to-dos right here. Let's refresh. They went away. So our items are being saved on local storage, but again, every time we refresh, this is because there's a side effect in overwriting the data before the asynchronous fetch is complete. Kind of word, a little too much word for what it really means, but again, it takes a minute, but I believe still has to do with the fact that we're returning a empty array and we have not set the item. I'm sorry, we have it here, but we have not used this side of use effect yet. We need a way to know that data is still loading before trying to update it. After the to-do list state declaration, create a new state variable. So right here, and it's gonna be is loading and set is loading. Use vacuum state, and it's gonna be true, just the state itself. And then in the second use effect, this is why I rename it, because I knew I was gonna need it between the difference between the first and the second. Afterwards, it'll be more easy because naming comments to every use effect might get long depending on how complicated the app might get. But let's see. In the second use effect, we're gonna add an if statement. Also another one for seeing tutorials. So this if exclamation point is loading, which I believe is if is loading is not true, but I need to double check. Then I'm gonna move this and to-do list is loading. Okay, now we need to turn up loading off once the data has been fetched. We're coming back here to then, and we're gonna use in the first use effect. And after setting our to-do list state, which we did here, we're gonna add a second line that we're gonna set our loading state. What is our loading state? To set this. Set is loading to false. That means stop loading. Let's see. All right, so we left here on set loading, we're turning to false. And then, actually I just realized that maybe the webcam is blocking the instructions, so let me see. Wait list. right here. Okay, so it's not black. And then, yeah, it should everything be running well. Let's see. Control S. Let's add clean dishes. Watch. Go React. Always good. All right. And remove. Actually, let me refresh it. So we have two. After refresh, shouldn't go away. They're still there. But because of our set timeout, every time we refresh it, it looks like the list is empty. And then it comes back. So it is working. But just as the instruction says, follow up. The data is saved properly, but the delay in loading. And the delay don't happen because of the set timeout. Makes it seem like the list is empty. So we're gonna take care of that with some JSX. We're gonna add a paragraph element above to-do list right here. And I had a paragraph element before. I don't know why I keep doing this, but I'm just gonna use this one, and I'm gonna name it loading dot dot dot. And then so the message should appear right there. Loading there. But we don't want loading to keep be present when our to-dos show up on the site. So we're gonna take care of with that. Some if ternary operator right here, ternary operator, and it's gonna go. I believe it's gonna go right here. So the way to start is curly brackets, and it's gonna be is loading, and then question mark, and then the way I learned how to start it was double and parentheses. So the left side is what will happen as long as it's not true, and what the right it will be what will happen if it's true. I actually need to make sure. But anyway, so it'll demonstrate loading here, and once it's not, then it'll display our to-do list component. So Control X here. Actually, that looks kind of ugly. And then here, Control X. Now it looks less ugly, but yes. So this is one, and this is the second one. So it should Control save. It should be working now. So every time I refresh, it will be loading message, and then it becomes false. List comes back into play. Drink water. Remind you to drink water. Then watch more React lessons. All right. Working, refresh. We got two to-dos left. We are reclaiming delicious, and we're gonna keep watching React. So yeah, so far this is React lesson 1.7, and we're moving forward into our project. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.